So I think one of the best ways to actually describe the relationship between Jonathan Kuminga and his head coach Steve Kerr over the last 4 years is one of a father-son relationship. Steve Kerr goes into Jonathan Kuminga's room and is like, "You haven't cleaned up your room in weeks, and please take out the trash. You're grounded, son." And Jonathan Kuminga, of course, doesn't understand why he's not allowed to take the family station wagon out for a ride. That is exactly what this relationship between Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr has been like. Yes, there's been times of praise, and yes, there's been times of, well, the opposite of praise. On today's NBA Rundown, we are going to get into Jonathan Kuminga and whether or not he is really Steph Curry's potential missing link to, at the very least, help the Golden State Warriors this year go on a deep playoff run. I've got all of that, and as always, North America, trust me, a whole lot more coming up on the NBA Rundown tonight. As always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, coming to you from the Silicon Valley. New to the NBA Rundown, please go ahead and subscribe. Smash that like button. All right, so now that the groveling's done, hey, by the way, just super quick, 2,500 plus subscribers. We're going for 5,000 by the end of the season. So please go ahead and subscribe. All right, so a big show for you tonight, primarily based on the Golden State Warriors. I am based up here in the Bay. I've been up here for 20 plus years, and I've seen all different phases of the Golden State Warriors during that time. And of course, I've seen the great Steph Curry go from the thin Steph Curry to the 37-year-old version of Steph Curry. The Warriors have had a great start to the season. Despite what happened in Milwaukee the other night, they are 4-2 now. And there has been a noticeable difference between how Jonathan Kuminga is actually playing on the court versus how he played on the court last season. We're going to get into that tonight. And I'm going to begin by showing you some video of Jonathan Kuminga from last season. And as I'm showing you this particular video of Jonathan, I want you to watch Steph Curry closely, and you can see how upset Steph Curry looks like he's getting, because as we all know, when we're watching this video, Kuminga's not doing the right thing. Now, to put this in the most simplistic terms, Jonathan Kuminga would be a person who receives a pass last year, and then the ball would get stuck in his fingers. In other words, Jonathan Kuminga would then attempt to do what old school NBA players would do, which is create a shot for themselves. And of course, we know that is not how the Golden State Warriors offense primarily runs. Jonathan Kuminga at this point is not Kevin Durant, if you know what I mean. So what's changed in this year so far? Well, a couple things. One, Steve Kerr suddenly has confidence in Jonathan Kuminga. Now, we know that the Warriors season didn't really officially start until Kuminga signed his 2-year, $46 million deal. He refused to sign a 3-year deal and gave the Warriors a team option for the second year, which is just bizarre on so many fronts. Now, of course, there's a lot of people in Warrior and Dub Nation right now that are counting down the days until we get to January 15th so they can take another stab at possibly bringing Giannis to the Bay, which, of course, I think we all know isn't going to happen. And I think with Steve Kerr actually making the decision to actually put Jonathan Kuminga into the starting lineup is faith that Jonathan Kuminga can now actually play better basketball than he did in the past couple seasons with Steph Curry. Now, you have to remember that through the last 10 years, basically outside of some of the Kevin Durant years, basically the offense runs through Steph, and everything that is, not everything, but a lot of what's actually done in the Warriors offense is to actually create easier or cleaner or safer looks for Steph Curry. And we all know how great Steph is, regardless of how clean or easy a look is. He can take a bad look and make it look easy as well. So Jonathan Kuminga seems to have actually bought into playing in the offensive rotation the way Steve Kerr actually wants him to play. Now, you have to remember Steve Kerr, at least vocally, believes in defense and wants to pitch defense in a big way to his players. And what the Warriors actually have by putting Jonathan Kuminga in the starting lineup at this point is a two-way wing. Somebody that is actually, if he wants to, can actually be a good defender. And so there were times early in Jonathan's career where the if he wants to was certainly a question mark. And sometimes people just need races, which might be the case in Jonathan Kuminga's case, at least at this point, because he has been actually playing really solid defense. He's the guy that, at least when he's on the court, is generally guarding the most difficult player on the opposing team. And that is something that Steve Kerr now has confidence in Jonathan Kuminga, which is why JK was moved into the starting lineup. Now, let's not kid anybody right now. Steph Curry's 37. Jimmy Butler, last time I checked, is 35. Draymond Green is in that same neighborhood. And they went out and said, hey, let's get older, and brought in Al Horford, who can't play in back-to-back games for the Golden State Warriors this year. He certainly didn't last year as well with the Boston Celtics. So the Warriors are an interesting basketball team because they have done a good job with their draft selection over the last couple years. We know that Pods is the real deal. We know that Moses Moody at times can be the real deal as well. Several other young players on the Warriors team that are certainly making a difference for this team and will make a difference for this team as the season goes on. So it's that interesting mix, if you will, of hot and wet, warm and cold, old and young players on a basketball team. And Jonathan Kuminga sort of fits into the middle of all of that. I think if you're a Warriors fan, you have to be very enthused and excited about what you've actually seen out of Jonathan Kuminga so far on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Ultimately, if Jonathan Kuminga can continue to actually do what he's doing, then he should be not trade bait come January 15th. Now, a lot of teams are actually going to be calling on January 15th and the 16th, and that's going to go on until the NBA trading deadline actually passes. But if the Warriors actually believe JK can be an integral piece of their future, then they will make an effort to not trade JK. This all comes down to whether or not Jonathan Kuminga is perceived internally as the missing link to actually help Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Jimmy Butler go deep on a playoff run this particular year. If they think that Kuminga is regressing back to 2023 and 2024 and 2025, Jonathan Kuminga, then they probably will move him. But ultimately, if you are a Warriors fan, you know that, Steph's probably going to sit out some games. And when Steph sits out those games, you can expect Jonathan Kuminga to score between 24 and 30 points a night. In other words, depth in the NBA, especially in a long 82 regular season game schedule, requires that you have other players that can deliver a la Austin Reeves with the Los Angeles Lakers. I think a lot about Austin Reeves and Jonathan Kuminga's careers sort of parallel each other, except for the fact that Austin Reeves has been given significantly more opportunity by the Los Angeles, well, depends which Los Angeles Laker coaching staff we're actually talking about. So ultimately, I would love to know what your thoughts and opinions are on Jonathan Kuminga. Do you think that Jonathan Kuminga is a missing link to help Steph Curry at least go on a deep playoff run this year? I tend to believe that he is, as long as he can continue to actually play offense the way he's actually been playing offense. In other words, the ball doesn't stick to his hand and die like it did with Karl Anthony Towns and the Minnesota Timberwolves 3 years ago? Or do we think he's actually conforming to the style of offense that Steve Kerr really wants to play? And if he can do that and keep his mind in the game and continue to improve on defense and continue to actually make a difference on the defensive side of the ball, I think this Warrior team might actually have that missing link. And if they think they do, I think they'd be crazy to actually go ahead and trade JK. All right, love to know your thoughts and opinions on this topic. I swear, seriously, Jonathan Kuminga and Steve Kerr, it's like a father-son relationship. It's like the son didn't do something the father wanted him to do, and then the father is punishing the son by taking something away from him. In Steve Kerr's case, it's been playing time. And I think those days of that happening are finally over. Because I think Jonathan Kuminga needs the Warriors, and I think the Warriors need JK as well. All right, once again, go ahead and drop in your comments. I want to hear from you, North America. Thanks so much for tuning in once again to the NBA Rundown. As always, I'm Dave DeBaugh, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.